So the reason I brought you all here today, hello, Meet Magento India. That's lively. This is my first presentation of the year, if you can believe it. And I have to say, you all look amazing. Thank you for this wonderful weather. It was getting a little chilly when I left my wife back home to finish our condo renovation. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm flying home to. We'll see if I still have a wife. No, it's interesting, right? Getting going, kicking off a year for me is always an interesting prospect, right? Because usually for me it's a very busy train. It's a lot of it's just a lot. I know the year that's ahead of me, right? Because this scene that we have here gets repeated in its own way, in its own idiom, in different countries around the world, right? So the unbridled passion and excitement, and these days, I think maybe some questions, like this stuff gets, it gets repeated all year long at the different Meet Magento events, and then at the local meetups, it gets repeated at, in the office. People are kind of wondering what this year holds in store for them. I think when I was here this time last year, or in Ahmedabad, there was a kind of a question: what is this going to be like? What is this Adobe era going to be like? And I'm happy to tell you, I am seeing more of the direction that we're headed in. But I also see something else. I also see a lot of control that's going to be handed over to this ecosystem. So I thought long and hard about what I would call my first presentation, Magento 2020, and then I realized, you know what? I just wanted to come and hang out with you guys and chat about a couple things. First of all, I wanted to chat about what your Magento is, because I learned something interesting every time I come to India. And one of the things that I learned is how many people have been in this business for so long. I think I did this last year, but I'm just curious. If you have been doing Magento since before 2010, hold up your hand. There's a few of us in here. Okay. Since 2010. That used to be a lot closer to now than it is now. Does that make sense? Right? I don't think of 2010 as that long ago, but man, that was a really long time ago. That was back when I was still kind of scared to fly, if you can believe that. I married a pilot, by the way. I make terrible choices. So that's 2010, and then as I change that window, as I say, who's been doing Magento for at least 5 years? At least 5 years, yeah. I mean, that's a good chunk of this room, right? And then I can go on, and I'm curious. How did you get into Magento? I'm putting you right on the spot.
Okay, so I started working with one company, and they were doing Magento, so I started learning it. There was an option to go for Magento or Google, and I chose Magento because it was orange and I like orange.
Oh. Wait, say that last part again.
Because it was orange and I like orange.
She likes orange. I love it. Absolutely love it. Why did you get into this business? Well, it matched my outfit. Which I would be remiss if I didn't show you. I do have orange socks. Thank you for that answer. So got into the business, yes, because you had some options, right? And that's the wonderful thing about Magento. I can ask this question individually in here, and I get an amazing story. I get a story about, the way I look at it, a life that's been changed because some people decided a while ago that, hey, open source commerce. Let's put these together and let's do this in a really robust way. And it's really nice that I still get to spend time with Roy Rubin, one of the co-founders of Magento. And I was amazed. I don't remember if I told this audience this last year. I was amazed when I got to catch up with him, and he's very fit, successful entrepreneur type. So we had a meeting, but instead of like going and getting a beer, we went for a hike. And in this hike, as I was trying to keep up with him, because he does like triathlons and stuff now, I was like, "Hey man, did you have any idea about this thing that you created? Like that it would do this?" And I knew the answer, right? Of course, because it didn't. He knew. He said, "I wanted to change the face of commerce. Like I wanted to change basically the balance of power. I wanted to change how it was done." Because back in like the early 2000s, if you wanted, especially if you were any merchant of any size, if you really wanted to be doing online commerce, you had to deal with some of the big players. You had to deal with like an IBM WebSphere or something like that, right? And so they created this thing to kind of democratize that. And I think that's the spirit that is important, and that has enabled so many stories. All the stories in here. And I'll tell you that your stories matter. They matter to us. They matter to your peers here. And they're stories that I'd love to hear more about. They're stories that deserve telling. Because at the end of the day, we're all here doing work, hopefully that we care about. And I think it's really important for Adobe to hear those voices. Your voice in the hall. The great thing about, the thing that I've enjoyed as time has gone on, my time has gone on working with Adobe, has been that, they're definitely a company that cares. They're a company that cares about their employees. They care about our employee growth. Huge company in the world, over 20,000 employees. We have pay parity, gender pay parity, which was a big push, and something that I think is emblematic of Adobe's commitment to diversity. I mean, as Adobe has evolved from, the Photoshop company that kind of I always thought of it. Over the last few years, they've really come to invest in their own culture, and we're lucky that Magento, coming into the company, like we have no idea what it was like 6, 7, 8 years ago. I think it's always been a pretty good company, but now it's truly a great company. But Magento and the Magento ecosystem are a force like no other. And you see that, again, represented in the stories here. You see that, you see that in the effect that we have in the market. And I think Adobe are still looking towards this ecosystem to help guide the future, to indicate where they're going to go. Now, it's really neat that Adobe has so many things. I was speaking with my good friend Stefan earlier about the really cool stuff that his company, Tech Division, is doing with all of the various Adobe products. Like when you start to combine all of these things that are involved in a customer experience, when you start to put all those things together, the Adobe suite of products, which now includes Magento, really takes on kind of a magical property. But that business is a very big business up there, right? And so a lot of the conversations that I've been having here are, okay, so what is happening with Magento? Like, does my business still count? And my answer to that question is still yes. Yes, it does. Because there's still this work to be done. There's still this ecosystem to nurture. And you all are an intimate part of that. And what I've seen so far from Adobe has been continued stewardship and investment in us as a company. So We are hiring even as we grow teams together. So the team that I'm on, which is kind of a business development team, we've combined with our counterparts that were part of Marketo. And you're seeing that integration has been happening since the acquisition, but we're seeing more and more of Magento being integrated with what is Adobe. I knew in giving some updates here that I wanted to, I should probably give you some highlights of things that are going on. But these things, I'd really look at those as kind of the continued investment of Adobe in Magento. So for example, we just had another release, 234. PWA Studio, some big updates there. Who here is playing with PWA Studio so far? Y'all don't count. I'm talking to them. I'm making fun of Brent. There, back there. Sorry, show of hands. Are you playing with PWA Studio at all? Okay, interesting. That's like far too few people. I was telling a group of people earlier that when we started this PWA journey with Google, I was at the kickoff meeting at the Google campus. I tried. They didn't give me one of those hats, though. You have to be an employee. But it's interesting because I'm in the room with the people who are like writing the specifications that browser vendors are actually implementing. Basically, the people who Google are kind of twisting the arms of, as they can. And we were looking at AMP and PWA. But I wasn't really familiar with the concept. I wasn't familiar with any examples. And it was interesting because they brought up Mintra.com as like one of the early examples of how to do these very light, responsive, and then app-like kind of interactions with, for a website. And but they actually had to show me like, okay, now do this now. Okay, now shut your phone, your data connection off, and you see the site still works. Like, wow, that's interesting. So that it was an example from here that has stayed on my mind ever since then. So PWA Studio is where we're investing because we think that's where the web is headed. Now personally, I grew up in the time of server-side rendering, like only, and I don't know what people have done to make things so damn complicated. Front-end development, I mean, wow. Like you have to run Node to do front-end development? As we look for this sort of richer, more data-friendly interaction, this combination of actions between the device in the user's hands and the server that's kind of knowing what's going on, or increasingly the miscellaneous serverless servers out there. I'll give you, it says serverless, but they're still servers. As all of these functions are just sort of happening and being connected into these experiences, like how do you manage that? That's actually kind of a complex set of things to deal with, which is why we've taken the time to create this PWA Studio experience. So we're putting a lot of our time and energy there. I would encourage you, as you can, to look into it. Because at the end of the day, the nice thing about a PWA experience, about a progressive web app, is it is the progressive part, right? It is just progressive enhancement. It is making the web a little bit better for your users. Whether you're really realizing the app part of the experience or not. The discipline and the set of technologies, those are happening, and you should avail yourself of those. So I would encourage you to take a look. We have a little landing site there that should help you get you spun up. So as far as getting involved, you can always see what we're doing. I spelled that right. Okay, good. Under our repository, we have a few places that you can see what's going on. Obviously, the main Magento repository, where you can see development happening with the help of our wonderful community maintainers, community engineering team. I know a couple of guys are here, and I believe we have a contribution day tomorrow. So if you have the time, I would recommend that you spend some time with our team. There's no better source for learning proper Magento development than from the people who've been working on the product for so long. Something else I want to bring up, and something else I was announcing last year, Magento Association. Does anyone familiar with Magento Association so far? Okay, like 8 more people than PWA Studio. So I'll give you all a candid update because, well, they don't pay me to look pretty. That much is obvious. Magento Association is a nonprofit registered in the U.S. It is slowly becoming the entity that helps to administer Meet Magento, right? So that's one of the core functions, but also it's intended to be your voice. So you remember earlier in my presentation, about 15 minutes ago, I was saying that Adobe needs to hear your voice. They need to hear about your business. This is, the association, I hope, will be a way for you to have your voices heard. And the reason I think it's a good venue is because Adobe themselves are paying, I have to ask them for a big check every year, which they sign so far. Then I ask other people for checks, which hopefully they sign. And this process of asking for money is something I've never really done since I left home. Thanks, Mom and Dad. But we finally have basically the money that we need to kind of fund this whole adventure. So I am flying home tonight. It's been a lovely 36 hours. But flying home, and then I'm flying to Chicago, and I'll be working with our partners that help us run this association. And you will see, so I have a draft update for our latest newsletter for members coming out. I have, but I also have some exciting content that we'll be pushing out here in the next month or so, leading up to Imagine, which is anyone here going to be lucky enough to come to Adobe Summit? Imagine, I know it's a long way and it's bloody expensive. Okay, I'm going, but they're paying me to go. I don't like Las Vegas. I'm sorry if anyone here loves. You should see it once. Just. I mean. So Adobe Summit. I can't imagine as part of Summit. It's going to be massive. I think they're targeting somewhere between 20 and 30,000 people there. It'll be a very big event. The association, I'm on the board of the association, so we're going to be hosting the Pre-Imagine event along with some excellent sponsors. I know one of them sitting in this room. So if you do plan on going, I would encourage you to arrive on Sunday. It'll be your chance to meet up with the Magento community there. It's an amazing event. It grew organically, just like this ecosystem, right? I was at the first Imagine when I was working at a partner agency, and this whole party before the party tradition started when a few of us, like my boss, Kevin, Karen from Shipper HQ, and one of the person, they just threw down their credit cards and we just kind of bought the bar for the evening. And it just kind of, the tradition grows on from there. So that's another thing that the association is doing, and we're doing it because it's an important ecosystem activity. I think I have one more thing I wanted to talk about, and just say, as we go into 2020, my contact information, which I'll put up in just a moment, is an open book. I want you to reach out to me if you think you have something important. And if you think it might be important, it probably is, so just let us know. I wanted to point out our masters. So a masters is our recognition program for contributors. We always encourage people, I mean, do whatever you can, and anything is a contribution. The fact that you're here today, this is a contribution. You're contributing to this ecosystem. But you'll notice there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people from India. A lot of the valuable, recognizable contribution comes from this part of the world. In fact, this is I think most of the downloads of Magento are still coming from here because we have so many developers here. I like to show people this slide because it is a reminder again that we have an amazing ecosystem. This whole thing doesn't happen without you, and that certainly is the case going forward. So, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your commitment to this product, this ecosystem. Your bosses, thank you for your commitment to your job. And I thought this felt very, very true to say. It is true. I never, well, I mean, it is a little chilly in here, but metaphorically, my heart is warmed. My heart is warmed. I have had my annual supply of selfies. I'm sure if anyone would like, I would like to grab a couple selfies with you. And I wish you well in 2020. Let's make it amazing. Okay?